ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to CarpeDM. We're doing something a little bit different today. I'm not hitting you up with a podcast, but rather today we're going to go through a tutorial on how to use a little program that is called QLab. Now, some of you may be curious as to what in the world this program is, so I'm going to give you a little bit of application first. Mostly what I generally use this program for is whenever I do a sound design for a theatrical performance or something like that. We used to use iTunes while working at the Factory Theater here in Greenville. Upgraded a bit since then. Something that QLab will allow us to do is play multiple tracks at once and allows us for a lot more things to be customized and give us exactly what we want. So, to start off here, we're just going to give you a little bit of an introduction, some of the real basic stuff, and move into showing you exactly what this program can do. So I'm going to start off here just by bringing in a couple of audio tracks, so that's done. So I'm going to come over here to my Finder, bring in a couple of audio tracks. I have the Imperial March here by Epica, and one thing I will suggest is that QLab really likes to use WAV files that are often a little bit larger in size. Doesn't really like some of these MP3s. We're going to use them right now just for the sake of time and ingredients and stuff like that. So bring it in, hit play, that's your space bar, and there you go. We have a track. It's that easy. One thing that I really do like about QLab is this right here, the fact that it targets a track rather than imports a track. That means that you can change this actual track if you need to adjust it for length or something like that, and it will change that within your workspace here. You don't need to re-import the track or anything like that. The only problem is if you decide to put this track into a different folder, well, then we start to have issues because it can't find where that target track is at. Now, we can call this whatever we want. We could call this the Imperial March. That is done simply by double-clicking on it. That does not make it play. That actually brings up the renaming menu. So we have a track. Now what do we want to do with it? Well, seeing as how we're in theater, one of the most common things we're going to do is bring in some fades. Now, the fades work a little bit tricky, so I'm going to show you exactly how that's done. Bring in the fade at the beginning. We're going to fade into our track. It says drag audio cue here. We're going to give it a target to look at. It's going to target the Imperial March right here. Now you'll still see we have a little X here. We need to set some levels for that. We can call that fade whatever we want. But if we come down here to our levels, then we can look at our master level, what that's going to be at the end of the 5 seconds we have showing right here. So we're going to bring that up to 0 right there. And so in 5 seconds, it's going to give us a fade up to 0. Now, here is where it gets a little bit tricky. You see these arrows here on the side. If I click it once, it's straight. If I click it twice, there's a little circle there. This means a simultaneous cue. These two will run at the same time, and I'll get into that a little bit later. This means a circle cue. The circle on the arrow means that it will run as a follow cue. As soon as this one's done, the next one will start. So what we want right here is a straight. We want these two to start simultaneously, because, and this is where it gets tricky, we want to set this level at 0. So that this track right here does not start with any volume coming in. It's all dependent on this right here. Now, if we were to play this right now, we would get a 5-second fade in, and that's exactly what we want. All right, 5 seconds. That's exactly what we were looking for there. And I will continue this tutorial in just a second with the fade out. So apparently, if you were watching there, my video recording software allows me 5 minutes per video, so you're gonna get this in little bitty segments. I apologize for that, but you got to work with what we got. So, like I said, I'm going to show you how to do the fade out. It's going to be very similar to what we saw before. We drag down our Imperial March so that it targets this cue right here. And once again, we're going to set some levels. However, these are going to be different from the ones we had before. It looks like this is already set to what we want it at 5 seconds. Yes, we want it to be at negative infinity. We want it to be completely gone. But the fact that it's grayed out means it's not in use. We actually have to click this slider and drag it down and make sure it's right. This little button right here is also our friend, stop target when done. That means when at the end of 5 seconds, when it's finished its run, it will automatically stop the target track. So what we have here is we have a fade in of 5 seconds, and then we let this play for a while, and then on cue, the next cue, whenever that is in the show, we can automatically fade out that 5 seconds as well. Now, that does not get one of these simultaneous cues because that is going to be cued separately. So here's what we got. We got the fade in, the song, and a fade out. Let's try that. All right, so minus a little memory jump there at the very beginning where we lost audio, as you saw. We fade in, let it play for a little bit, and then on cue starts to fade out. That's exactly what we want. Now, we have our fade in, we have our fade out, and this will be used at various times if you're using transition music or something like that. And speaking of that, one of the other common things that we're going to use in theater is pre-show music, intermission music, and stuff like that. And this is a really great way to try and organize that and make sure that it's all exactly where you want it. Well, the way we're going to do that is by using groups. Now, this is essentially just a folder. Anything can be dropped in here. I'm going to call this pre-show music just for the sake of a title. Now, as you can see, this folder is empty, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, I'm going to grab a couple of tracks like this, I'm going to drag them into pre-show music, let that load, and now we have music to begin our show. One of the nice things about this is it's all housed in this folder, so if I click it up, I can hide it, and I can look at what I really, really want to see, because once we get all this set, we really don't need to go back and look at it ever again. So, the cues here are going to be a little bit different from these. They're the ones that I mentioned earlier. We're going to click this once, but we don't want it to run simultaneously. Running these two tracks on top of each other could create a lot of chaos, so rather we're going to hit this twice and make this a follow cue. And then we're going to do that twice because we want, once this one's done, then it goes right to this one. Once this one's done, it's going to go right to this one. However, this is going to be its own cue, so we don't want that to simultaneously cue or follow anything else. So now that we have these set, whenever we're done, we can just close this up, and we know that our pre-show music is good to go. Now, just to give you an idea of what that looks like, I'm going to start playing these, and then over here, I'm going to jump to the end of the song so you can see it jumping to the next track. Here we go. All right, excellent. That's exactly what we want that to do. We want it to go to the end of the track, start playing the next one automatically, but at the end here, we just want it to stop. Now, if we were to let that continue on, this would be our next cue, and we'd be good to go. However, I'm getting little red lights at the bottom, so I will pause this one for now, and I will come back to show you a little bit more technical stuff. These are some of the basics, and we're going to dig a little bit deeper on this next one. All right, we're back, and I apologize if you hear any music playing subtly in the background. My professor, Deloy, has his office right next to mine, and he feels the need to just kind of blast his music for the whole world to hear. Can't imagine why he would do such a thing. But anyways, we're going to dig into this a little bit more, kind of get into some of these more technical cues down here a little bit lower. First thing we're going to do is I'm going to work with showing you how some of these cues can be used simultaneously. So I'm going to bring in a phone ringing alarm, okay, and it's, okay, we are good to go there. And say the phone is ringing, this is what you got on stage, the phone's ringing, a guy comes in, and all of a sudden the TARDIS from Doctor Who decides to land, okay. That'd be kind of cool. Can't say it's been in a show yet, but for any of you aspiring writers, potentially, here's an idea for you. So we have a phone ringing, it's going, and then we have the TARDIS. Now there are a couple ways we can do this. We can either start the phone and then start the TARDIS, or if that's under a set amount of time, you want a phone ring for about 5 seconds, then we can throw what we have a wait cue in here. So the phone starts, it waits 5 seconds, and then we have the TARDIS. Now the way we do that is we have this wait cue set at 5 seconds right here. We set a simultaneous cue, set these two run together, and 5 seconds later, our TARDIS will sound. Here we go. As long as I put in all the right cues. As some of you may have caught, there needs to be a follow cue right here, something that I missed. My sincerest apologies. Let's go back and try that again. And as you can see, the phone cue continues to run over top of that. This is one of the huge benefits from working with QLab as opposed to iTunes, is we can get some of these layered effects that really helps to bring life to the stage. It really helps for creating soundscapes or something like that. If you have some birds chirping and you want to throw like a thunder cue or something like that, over top of that on cue with a line. That was actually one that I had to do for the show A Midsummer Night's Dream. There was some wind in the background. We threw in some thunderclaps and raven caws and stuff like that. And it really helps to create a sense of depth and space and layers to your sound design, which is really something that's we want to go for in creating that realistic effect. Now, we don't necessarily want this phone to keep ringing all the way to the end, because obviously you want to set a loop on your phone so that it can ring as long as it needs to, but we need to get that phone to shut off somehow as soon as he picks it up, and that is where our stop cue comes in. And we're going to set this stop cue right down here. It needs a target. We're going to give it a target. Now, we don't need to set any levels to this because it automatically stops it wherever it's at. It doesn't pause. It just straight stops it, ends it, done. Okay, now that's going to be a cued stop, or we could put in another wait cue. Right now I'm just going to leave it as a manually cued stop. This way the phone rings, 5 seconds we have a TARDIS, and then whenever whoever is coming in picks up the phone, and you can hit the stop cue. We're going to try that right now. Boom. That's how we do. We have our phone, wait, TARDIS, stop. Now, suppose we want to do something a little bit more tricky. This won't exactly work for the situation I've given, but there might be certain applications in various shows. This situation does not necessarily demand this next thing. However, using these as an example, I'm going to show you how it's done. We're going to throw in some pause and start cues in there as well. However, once again, I'm getting those red flashy numbers, and so I will be right with you with that tutorial. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for sticking around this long and having the patience to stick around like this. Right now, I'm going to show you a couple of different cues here. We're going to bring in a pause cue here, just like this. Oh, that stopped. I want to bring in a pause like that. I'm going to drag him down like this, and I'll bring in a start. That usually goes along with our pause cue. So one of the first things I'm going to do is take off this stop cue. No, we'll leave him in there. We're going to take this TARDIS, actually, and we're going to set him to our pause cue and back to our play cue. Okay. Now, this would be if you want to pause a particular sound effect and then play it again. If you're really trying to mess with the dude on stage, he's getting closer, so you pause it, and then he starts to turn away, and you play it again and pause and play, and you can have a little fun with this if you want to. So, what we're going to do here is our TARDIS then is going to start. I'm going to pause him halfway through, and then the guy starts to turn away, and then we finish out the cue just like that. So that does not affect at all the stop cue, the wait cue, anything like that. All of those are completely separate and can be queued up individually. This is a very, what I like to call a top-down system. There is no button that'll let you go back up other than you can use your arrow keys or something like that, but there is no next. Well, there is a next. But every time you hit the space bar, it drops down. It drops down. It drops down. You can't easily go back up. So it's a very top-down system. It's meant to run more or less linearly. And with some of these, you can actually jump around a bit by using go-tos and targets and things like that. However, usually when you're running a show, you want it to run very linearly, all the way top-down, which is why we have our fade-ins above, then our tracks, our fade-outs, and stuff like that. So I hope this has been very helpful for you. It has definitely revolutionized the way that I do shows, from queuing simultaneous tracks to using pausing to layering tracks on top of each other. And it's definitely reshaped the way that I design for theatrical shows. It's been really useful to me, and I hope it's been useful to you. Hopefully this will help you get started, and it will help you out on the next show that you're trying to design. So, for any further tutorials, this is CarpeDM. I am your host, Austin Schumacher, and we will see you next time. Allons-y!